It's like coming into a surprise birthday party or something. This is great. Angela, how's everyone?
Good.
Great. Today, what I want to do is give you some information about colds and influenza and our current products, Echinacea Plus and Super Tonic, that we use as our main prevention and treatment for colds and influenza, and the new cold and flu herbal shot that I've designed with those two products and a few extras for treatment and prevention of colds and flu. And I wanted you to look at these numbers up there for a minute. The top one is 1 billion. That's what 1 billion looks like. And I wanted you to know that this fall, which we're in right now, just started, and winter, but about over the next 5 months, that's how many infections of colds and flus will be in America. There'll be 1 billion cases of colds and flus. Now you might think, well gosh, but America only has a population of 300 million, plus or minus a few million, which is true, which means that the average American is going to get 3.5 cold and flu infections in the wintertime. And because I'm not going to get one, that means someone out there is getting 7, which really means, and you all know these people, they're just sick all fall and all winter. Just when they about get ready to get out of bed, they're back again with something. And you hear people say it, I can't shake this cold, I can't shake this flu. Well, they might be having bacterial and viral infections all winter long that are different, and that's why sometimes it's worse and better, but some people are just sick all winter long. Now the next number is 150 million. And 150 million are the number of infections of influenza that there'll be. The first one, 1 billion, is colds, bacterial infections, upper respiratory infections, and viral infections, influenza. But 150 million is the amount of influenza infections alone, and that's usually more serious than the bacterial infections. The flu is the one that hurts like hell, your body aches, you're in a lot of pain, you have a high fever often, and you feel like you've been run over by a truck. Often the bacterial colds are more like the sniffles and the sore throat and things like that. And the one that nobody likes to get is influenza, because that's the one where you just feel really horrible and you can't get out of bed. And so there'll be 150 million cases of influenza. Now that's about 50% of America. But often people get the flu more than once in the same year. So not exactly half of America gets it, but that's how many cases, individual cases, there will be of influenza. The next number down is 200,000. 200,000 is the amount of Americans that will end up in the hospital in the next 5 months with colds and influenza, because they will get so sick they'll go to the emergency room and the doctors will think they're so ill they will admit them to the hospital. That's a lot of people. And 40,000, the number with the red circle around it, is the number of people that will die in the next 5 months. 40,000 Americans dead, guaranteed in the next 4 to 5 months from influenza. 40,000 men, women, and children in America will be dead, guaranteed. If it's a light year, if it's a heavy year, that number can go up to 70,000. And if it's a real bad year, it can go into the millions. It can be what's called a worldwide pandemic, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. Now the smaller number under that, 4,175, that's the amount of people that have been killed in the last 5 years, not in the next 5 months, but in the last 5 years from the war in Iraq. Okay, now look at that number. And that's the number one issue that you hear in the presidential campaign. Now, as far as I'm personally concerned, and I think all of you know my viewpoints, I think that's 4,175 too many people dead by warfare. I think here we are in the age of Aquarius in the new millennium, and we ought to figure out better ways to deal with each other than blowing each other up. But I just wanted to put it in perspective, because 10 times more people that have died in the last 5 years in Iraq, which again is the issue on the presidential campaign right now, 10 times more are going to be dead in the next 5 months. 10 times more Americans are going to be dead just from influenza. And when's the last time you heard Obama or McCain talking about influenza? It's not a topic, okay? And it is a reoccurring epidemic. It is the only reoccurring epidemic in America that comes back every year. There are other epidemics, but they don't reoccur. Influenza is a guaranteed reoccurring epidemic of epidemic proportions. Anything that kills 40,000 people is considered an epidemic. Okay, that's almost the amount of people that died in the whole Vietnam War. So that's a pretty wild number, guaranteed in the next 5 months. And the little numbers below it, 20,000. That's the number of people that will die of AIDS this year in America. Okay, and that's in an entire year. We have 40,000 dead in the next 5 months from influenza. 27,000 is the amount that will die from prostate cancer, and as men, that's all we hear about. And 35,000 is the number that will die from breast cancer, and as women, that's all you hear about. Okay, now those are all important numbers. Breast cancer is a huge issue. Prostate cancer, we want to make sure it's gone. AIDS is something that is ravaging the world, and we have to get rid of it. Okay, and the war is something we have to stop. But I wanted you to see those numbers because none of those numbers are as big as the amount of people that are guaranteed to be dead in the next 5 months if we have a light flu epidemic this year. So when you see those numbers, you realize we're going to lose customers this year. Some of our customers will be dead before spring from colds and influenza. So it's a serious, serious disease epidemic that comes back and knocks on our door every year. Sometimes I mentioned it's a pandemic, and a pandemic is a scarier word in medicine. It means, oh, it's a really bad epidemic. And there have been pandemics in the past. The bubonic plague, sometimes called the Black Death, was a pandemic of the Middle Ages, and it killed people all over the world. Killed half the population of Europe. Wow, think of that. Half the population, 25 million people died in the 1300s of the Black Death or the bubonic plague. That's a pandemic. A huge pandemic was the Spanish flu or the Spanish influenza, and that hit right after World War I. And 100 million people died in the world over the next 2 years. That's twice as many people were killed by that flu than all of World War I. So we think of world wars and wars as being horrible things, but you can see that just little bacteria and virus are much more deadly than even the greatest forces of the planet with all their guns and bombs and missiles. A lot of people think, well, I'm kind of safe because I'm isolated, I don't live in LA, I live in a small town, or I live in Tahiti and I'm a fruitarian. But after the Spanish flu in 1918, they went to remote villages in Alaska where viruses are least likely to live because of the cold weather, and it's hard for them to breed. And they found entire villages dead on the ground in Alaska from a virus. So there's no real protection from a viral attack. It will go everywhere on this planet. No matter where you are, build a fallout shelter. It's going to get through even where the radiation doesn't penetrate. Also, pandemics, for some reason, and nobody knows why, hit people in the prime of their life. Normally, every year when we have a flu and influenza epidemic, the majority of people that die are little children, 0 to 5 years of age, because they don't have a mature immune system yet, and senior citizens in nursing homes or the hospitals. And certainly people of middle age get killed, and teenagers, but it's mostly the young and old with the more impaired immune systems that are more at risk. But when there's a pandemic, nobody knows why, the biggest age group is 20 to 40 that get killed. And nobody knows why, but that's the way it happens. And 50% of the deaths in a pandemic are in the prime age group. So if anybody says, well, I don't have to worry about it because I'm 30 years old and I'm in top shape, that's great if we have an epidemic. If this year's influenza turns into a pandemic and grows to those kind of proportions, the age group that'll get most deaths is that age group of 20 to 40. There was a little poem I read that was scary. Now, I'll backtrack for a second. I had a great uncle who fought with Teddy Roosevelt in Cuba, and then also fought in World War I. And when I was a little kid, I sat on his lap, and he told me, and I wrote this years ago in one of the newsletters, that World War I was hell. It was the trench wars through France. You're in trenches. They hit you with mustard gas. It's an herbal gas made from mustard that just burnt your flesh off. And machine guns were a new invention, and health wasn't an invention. The medics didn't know what to do. And it was just often, he said, that he would be fighting and using as a shield piles of rotten, dead bodies that were blown in half. I mean, it was probably one of the most horrific wars. If there's any good wars, this was not one. It was a horrific war. And he said nothing scared him as much as when he came home after World War I was over and he saw the bodies piled up in the streets from the Spanish flu. They were dying quicker than people could cart them away. In fact, in New York City, they used whole city buses and loaded them with bodies. Okay, this is a pretty scary talk, I know. But it's amazing because when I was a kid, there was a pandemic in 1957, and I was only about 5 years old, and that was the Asian flu pandemic. And that year, 70,000 Americans died, which is a lot more than 40,000, and our population was a lot less. 70,000 Americans died. 2 million people on the planet died from the Asian flu. And I remember being so sick that I was delirious. I was in a dream state with 106-degree fever. And I remember looking up and seeing really horrified, worried looks on my parents' faces because I was going to die. And that was the first episode I had that fever. And the drugs that I was giving scarred my heart. So that was one of the first reasons I not only was born with a genetically deformed heart, but then I got extra scarring from the Asian flu. And when I came out of it and I was better, there were holes in my neighborhood. There were people missing, people that died. And most of you aren't as old as me, so you weren't around then. But I have a memory of it. So it's not just the Dark Ages, the Middle Ages. It's not just World War I, but this was the 1950s, almost 1960. And often pandemics reoccur every 40 or 50 years. And the reason I talk about this with the public and us is because everybody says we are overdue for our next pandemic. Is it going to be the bird flu? Who knows? The bird flu seems to have been up and down and up and down, but I'll let you know that the Asian flu that almost killed me was a bird flu, was a type of bird flu. So this bird flu could come back one winter and do some butt kicking in this country and around the world. What do we know? There was an old poem I saw in a book about the Spanish flu. It said, I had a little bird, its name was Enza. I opened the window and influenza. And a little kid had written that in the book. And what was frightening is just the amount of kids that died. I mean, you can go into certain towns in America and go to the graveyards, and you will find so many children deaths from that post-World War I influenza. So it's serious stuff. Now, I hope I'm not depressing anybody's immune system, but I just want you to know the serious nature of colds and flus, and I'll tell you some things that the Center for Disease Control is saying, and they try to downplay it because they don't want to panic anybody, but this is the importance of staying healthy, because what do we know? 40,000 Americans minimum are going to be dead in the next 5 months. I mean, that's a scary number. 200,000 will end up in the hospital, and 150 million cases of influenza will be in America, and 1 billion cases of colds and flus. So we want to be Dr. Schultz prepared. Okay, so you know that I love to explain to people in a condensed, simple fashion what the reality of something out there is. But then I also like to explain to them, what are we going to do about it? I don't like just hearing problems. I want to know solutions. Well, first I'm going to give you the medical community's answer, the solution, which is basically a shot. It's the flu shot. And the flu shot, well, what is it? Well, it has an ethylene glycol, which is antifreeze, that green liquid that you pour in your car's radiator that you don't want to spill on the ground, because if it gets down and gets in the water and gets out in the ocean, it kills all the fish. It's a toxic chemical. The basis of the flu shot is animal pus. We take animals and we kill them and infect them with last year's flu. When the animals die and rot, we take the pus, which has that antibodies that they created in that sheep or monkey or cow, and then we mix that with the antifreeze and a few other things. Formaldehyde, which is embalming fluid, highly toxic. Carbolic acid, which is one of the biggest poisons that we know of. Aluminum, which causes seizures, and of course is linked to be the cause of dementia and Alzheimer's disease. And then add some mercury in as a preservative, which we know is a heavily toxic metal that causes nerve damage, liver damage, and cancer. That's medicine's answer. And of course it's based on last year's flu shot. Now, even if this toxic, lethal garbage called the flu shot worked, it's like trying to hit a fly with a sniper rifle, looking through a scope. It would be impossible. And the reason is because the flu that existed last year is not the flu we're going to have this year. Even if it was the same one, flu viruses do what they call shift and drift, which means they're never the same. They're never the same because they mutate. They figure out how to get better, how to get stronger so they can penetrate and eat you up. Because their job of a virus or a bacteria is to survive, is to thrive. And we don't want them to survive and thrive. We want to make them go away. But people just don't have to take it from me. Let's look at what the experts say. And this is our new fall 2008 seasonal report and herbal products catalog. And I have a couple great quotes in here. The first one is the most recent by Dr. Julie Gertberding from the CDC. She's the Center for Disease Control Chief. And this is her September 2008 quote. She says, "Ready or not, a flu pandemic is coming. No one knows when the pandemic is coming and what strain of flu virus will cause it." So I want you to be aware that the top medical doctors that study influenza in the country, they're not saying the epidemic's coming, they're saying a pandemic's coming. And it will eventually hit. Here's another quote from the Center for Disease Control. "Influenza seasons are unpredictable. The beginning, severity, and length of an epidemic can vary widely from a year to year, making it impossible to accurately predict the features of any season. Even the pharmaceutical manufacturers admit this is a serious problem and places serious doubts on the effectiveness of any influenza vaccine." Okay, they know that. Here's another one. This one's from U.S. health officials. Last year's flu season was the worst we've had in 4 years. More deaths and more people hospitalized last year. In part to a vaccine that wasn't a good match for the circulating flu strain. Okay, making a flu shot, you have to be psychic because you're trying to guess what's going to be out there. And finally, this is the best one, from the past chief vaccine officer of the FDA. He says there is no evidence that any influenza vaccine thus far developed is effective in preventing or mitigating any attack of influenza. The producers of these vaccines know that they are worthless, but they go on selling them anyway. Okay, I'm just going to let him do the talking for me because he's the chief vaccine officer from the FDA. So simply and then if you really want to get into the seasonal report, what's fun is we have some pictures here of what the animal pus and dead fish and mercury and ethylene glycol looks like, and a guy looking like, oh God, another flu shot. So I don't advocate flu shots and never have, mainly because you're injecting toxic poison and animal pus into your body, and secondly, there's no proof at all that they're effective, and that's even from the people who are suggesting them, whether it's the FDA or the CDC. So they're not effective. So what do we do? What do we do? For years, I've had 2 drinks. One is my prevention drink that you do every month at the beginning of every month so you don't get the cold and flu. And the other one is the treatment drink that you take if you're feeling like, uh-oh, I'm feeling sick. You know how it is. You come home and you notice you have a little sweat going and you have a little scratchiness, and then all of a sudden you can actually feel the bacteria or virus in your body. You know what it feels like when your breath gets hot and you have that fever, uh-oh. So my prevention drink is a drink to take at the beginning of every month. The treatment drink is the one to begin the minute you have the uh-oh feeling, you know you're getting sick. What most people have recognized is when they have the treatment drink that they get better. This is the excitement, that you don't have to go through all the week or 2 or 3 of an infection, that if you hit it early, you can get better much quicker. So I just want to explain those for a minute, and most of us know about them, but I want to explain them. The prevention drink and the treatment drink have some similarities. They're both made with Echinacea Plus and Super Tonic, and they've been in our catalogs every year for years and years and years. The prevention drink is, and I'm going to do this so it locks it in, is 12 droppers full, and a droppers full is always whatever comes up in the dropper. If you were to count it, if you had that much time in your life, it would be about 35 drops on average. But I always do droppers full, and that's 4, and that's 5, and that's 6, and 6 more, and we get 12 droppers full of Echinacea Plus. That's a much bigger dosage than we would normally take. And then we use 6 dropperfuls. It's always 2 to 1 of Super Tonic. I always like to shake the Super Tonic because I make it and I know all the goods that are in the bottom. Now I actually should have made that in the sports bottle because that's where the prevention drink goes. Because the prevention drink is something that you sip all day long. So it's 12 dropperfuls of Echinacea Plus, 6 dropperfuls of Super Tonic, and then I always say half water and half juice, about 8 ounces of each, because you're making about a 16-ounce drink. But what difference does it make? There's no steadfast rules here. I'll fill half that up with water and half that up with apple juice. Now, here's a fun secret. This is a great way to take your herbs. for the whole day. You know, if you're taking prostate tonic, 2-3 dropperfuls 3 or 4 times a day, put 12 dropperfuls in a morning drink like this. Put your juice in water, or just juice, or grape juice, or pomegranate juice, or just water, whatever you want. And bring it in and just sip it all day long, and make sure by the end of the day you've drunk your whole sports bottle. This is the way I do it. It just follows me around. And now you know that you got your 3 dropperfuls 4 times a day of prostate tonic, or female tonic, or nerve tonic, or whatever it is, and you have it. It's done. And it's just an easy way to remember to do it, because my patients were busy and didn't have time to always stop. Cut the camera, hold the film. We're taking a break because I have to take my bowel tonic. We just, put whatever in a glass. Even you. They didn't say that. Anyway, that's the prevention drink. Okay, that's the drink that you make 5-6 days in a row, and have this drink the first 5-6 days of every month. And that's to keep your immune system boosted and get rid of any bacteria or virus that are hanging around. The other drink is the treatment drink, and that's the one when you have that uh-oh feeling, you have the fever, the scratchy throat, and you know you're in trouble. And that one's the same thing, almost. It's 12 dropperfuls of echinacea. Here we go again. And this time, you are supposed to put them in the glass. You can even use a little shot glass. And then it's 6 dropperfuls of super tonic. And then all you do to this is add some juice. You don't need to water it down. You can use grape juice if you find, and 1 or 2 ounces of juice. That's enough, because you want to gargle and swallow this in about 1 to 2 gulps. So that's all you want in the drink. And this is the treatment drink. This is you came home from work, you know you got a fever, you know you're going to be sick, you know that you've been infected with bacteria or virus, and you gargle with this and knock it back. How many of these do you drink? As many as you feel you need. At least 2 a day, if not 10 a day, depending on the severity of your symptoms. If you've already found that you got 102-degree fever, and you're sweating, and you got the chills, and your bones ache, you could have one of these every couple hours. This is the treatment drink. This is for when you're sick. The same 2 ingredients, Echinacea Plus and Super Tonic, but in a much stronger dose. Instead of 1 drink watered way down, having it all day long for prevention, you're having 1 drink maybe every couple hours. That's the big difference between the prevention and the treatment drink. I am constantly looking for ways to get America and the world healthy, to make it easier for people to be healthy. Superfood I used with my most seriously ill customers for years. We have sold it for years. But then I made it in tablets, simply to bring those people in and be inclusive of those people that just will not drink a morning drink, will not drink a green drink. They won't play the game. And so I put it into tablets. That took us 2 years to design and develop the Superfood Tablets, because every tablet you see on the market is usually cooked or baked, or has glue in it, or has magnesium stearate, and a number of other chemicals, and the manufacturers like those chemicals in at a 15% or greater amount. That would mean that one of the biggest ingredients in superfood would be chemicals, and I refused. So it took us 2 years to figure out how to tablet it without chemicals. And today we're using 3% organic malt in the superfood, and we made tablets out of it, and everybody said we couldn't do it, and I'm really proud of that one, because you can shake the bottle, and when you pull it out, you still don't have broken tablets. And I did that to include people, because a lot of people out there, as you know, just won't do what's necessary to be healthy and well. Well, that's the reason I made the cold and flu shot too. For all of us that use the Echinacea and Super Tonic, we might still do it that way. Maybe not. But I made the cold and flu shot because what's in here is 12 dropperfuls exactly of Echinacea Plus, 6 dropperfuls of Super Tonic in a shot. What I added was acerola cherry juice concentrate, okay? Organic acerola cherry juice, which gives you 1,000% of your vitamin C. We all know that vitamin C is good for colds and flus. It helps protect you, prevent them, and it helps fight them. But I didn't want to put ascorbic acid in here. We didn't want some chemicals in here, so we used the acerola cherry, organic acerola cherry juice, which tastes really nice and makes it a flavorful drink. And now you're getting 10 times the vitamin C in the shot. I also added some diaphoretic herbs, which are great for fevers, because usually one of the first things with a bacterial and viral attack is you develop a fever. They don't make the fevers go away. They work with your fever, because a fever is a natural immune response of your body to destroy bacteria and to destroy virus. For every degree of temperature rise you have in the body, the speed at which your white blood cells can travel is double. If you have a 105-degree fever, your white blood cells are working 64 times faster than normal. The last thing you want to do is reduce a fever. The diaphoretics help you sweat so the fever doesn't become dangerous. And I also have a lot of the lung tonic herbs in here, including lobelia, to open up your lungs, because there's a less chance of being infected when you can breathe easier, because the germs want that air to stop. They want those bronchioles to swell, and that's one of the ways you get infected. So I put it all in a small bottle, and now all you do, if you want to make the prevention drink, is shake it up a little bit, open it up, and pour it in. Then add your juice. Or your water. And voila, as the French would say, you have your prevention drink. You not only have the 12 dropperfuls of Echinacea Plus, the 6 dropperfuls of Super Tonic, 10 times the vitamin C you need for the whole day, the diaphoretic, and the lung herbs. Okay, and it's faster, it's easier, it's more convenient. You can be illiterate and not be able to count and still figure this one out. Okay, I wanted to make sure I include everybody. Could I get this? Oh, well, you know what? I'll just spike the apple juice. No, it's great. It'll be a surprise for the person who drinks it. If you come home and you have that uh-oh feeling, and you already have a fever, a sore throat, you're wheezing, you know, I'm in trouble, I have bacteria and virus attacking me, it's in my bloodstream, and it's trying to kill me, you do the treatment drink. And this is the treatment drink. You could pour it in the glass and add 1 or 2 ounces of juice, but because I've added the organic acerola cherry and some blackberry and elder, which are beautiful tasting, but beautiful for elder is one of the oldest treatments for colds and flus because it detoxifies the body, you can now pretend it's a shot of your favorite whiskey. Not that any of you would drink anything like that. But now, you know, the whole idea was it's a cold and flu shot. We have to start moving away from injecting animal pus and antifreeze and mercury and aluminum and carbolic acid and all this horrible stuff into our arm and have to get used to putting herbs and roots and berries and nutrition into our body. This is the cold and flu shot for the new era of medicine, which is instead of trying to kill the disease, and hopefully we don't die in the process, instead feed the body what it needs so it can figure out how to heal you. Because your body knows how to take immunoglobulin and mix it with a B cell and turn it into antibodies. Your body knows how to fight colds and flus and infections. It just needs your help. And so the new era of medicine, of natural medicine and herbal medicine, is helping your body to heal its illnesses instead of going in with something so deadly poisonous, like with cancer chemotherapy. We hope that it'll kill the cancer before it kills you. Okay, no one says that chemotherapy is good for you or healthy for you. People barely survive it. In fact, in countries that don't use it, they have better rates of surviving cancer than we do in America. Anyway, the new cold and flu shot, so all you do is, I'll start over, just for those of you at home. You open it up and drink it down, and I put a wide mouth top on it so you could chug it really quickly. I tried not to be a hog, but there's very little left. And that's how easy it is. So that's going to be one of the benefits too, is it's easier for our customers to do the prevention drink and the treatment drink. And it's going to include some of their friends and relatives who just won't count out 12, 6, find the organic apple juice in the water, but will open this up and mix it in a sports bottle or knock it back. That is the story of the new Dr. Šulc's herbal shot, the cold and flu herbal shot.
Knjige doktora Ričarda Šulca, Lečenje neizlečivih bolesti, 30-dnevni program čišćenja organizma i druga izdanja, kao i biljne preparati i tinkture prema originalnim receptima doktora Šulca možete nabaviti putem telefona 063 732 7738 ili preko web sajta dršulc.com. Ukoliko želite da studirate prirodnu medicinu iz svog stana putem interneta, posetite sajt institutpm.com ili zakonizdravlja.com. Upis je otvoren tokom cele godine.